Good morning to one and all. I, Dr. Harita Desai, welcome you all to day 3 of the 5-day FDP program on innovation management for nurturing entrepreneurship culture in educational institutes. As emphasized by sessions of day 1 and day 2, innovation management and devising strategies to nurture entrepreneurial activities at academic setup levels is the need of the hour. The right management of intellectual property rights and identifying suitable means for intellectual property rights and commercialization of intellectual property rights plays a key role in making inventions and ideations available to social domain. Inventive creative ideas arising out of firms and academic setups are truly realized in real world by identification of key drivers which aid to process, transmit and globalize generated knowledge. The fast pace of innovation process and production activities have raised challenges in management and protection of intellectual property rights. Hence, suitable means needs to be identified to manage, protect, and finally commercialize the intellectual property rights. Today's sessions will throw light in the aforementioned points. With this brief note, I now call upon Dr. Dipti Katne, Associate Professor of Pharmaceutical Analysis, Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis, to chair session number 7 for day 3, that is Intellectual Property Rights as Commerciable Assets by Mr. Vijay Kumar Shivpuje, sir. Madam, I welcome you to chair the session.
Thank you, Harita. Can we move on to the next slide, please, Harshali? It is my pleasure to welcome the next speaker, the speaker for this session 7. Mr. Vijay Kumar Shivpuje is a director at Patlex Business Solutions, a knowledge processing outsourcing firm practicing in patents and designs. He is also a co-founder of Pharma Literati, an online educational initiative which is working actively in the area of pharmaceutical education. Professionally, Sir has more than 16 years of experience with pharma corporates, law firms, and consultancy. Academically, he is a postgraduate in pharmacy and has LLB degree. He is a registered patent agent with the Indian Patent Office. He is the IPR lead with IPFC Asukam, New Delhi. He is also a mentor of Change with Government of India's Niti Aayog, Atal Tinkering Lab, and mentor Startup India, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. He actively collaborates with various institutions and universities for the skill-based activities and has conducted more than 100 IPR awareness programs with several universities, colleges, industry chambers, and so on. It's a pleasure to welcome you, sir, and over to you.
This is the first time I got acquainted with Dr. Vijay during this FDP. Vijay has been with us throughout the designing of throughout.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Dr. Deepti, for introducing me. I think I have got this privilege to be part of this particular FDP on day 3 for this particular session on intellectual property rights as a commercializable asset. I must take this opportunity to, before starting with the session, must take this opportunity to thank the organizers, Honorable Principal Ma'am, Dr. Krishnapriya Mohanraj Ma'am, the coordinator, Dr. Ujjwala Shinde Ma'am, and her entire team, Clara, Dr. Vivek, Harita, Shubhangi, and all the volunteers for organizing this wonderful FD faculty development program on innovation management for nurturing entrepreneurship culture in educational institutions. If we look at the changing trends in the academic institution or education, even if you look at the new education policy that has come up, you would see that traditionally academic institutions have been involved into teaching and research, but as we move on, there has been more focus on the entrepreneurial activities that need to be conducted at the academic institutions, because the government or the agencies now want the academic institutions to generate more job creators rather than job seekers. I think this is what has been already been discussed by my one of our mentors, Mr. Prasad Menon, in the inaugural session actually for this particular FDP as such. And as we actually think of entrepreneurial journeys or entrepreneurship as a at an academic institution, there has been a lot of discussion. There have been a lot of activities made be under MHRD ISCs, made be for the accreditation related activities or maybe for NIRF rankings as such. But in all these activities, actually, one common theme has been intellectual property rights. And I'm here to present about my expertise into intellectual property rights as a patent practitioner, especially with the academic institutions and the universities as such. I think I must thank the organizers again for having an entire day's sessions, 3 sessions on the different facets of intellectual property rights, how can they be commercialized, as well as how can you actually take the research to the next level of commercialization in the next session, and how to do that basically through IPR licensing as well. So all the 3 sessions are in a series, and my fellow panelists or the speakers who are there during the day would take my session ahead. Actually, it's kind of in a series, so don't miss any of these sessions. And we have got actually great speakers after me who would be taking the sessions as well. So to start with, let me just share my screen. Okay, great. Just someone can please confirm if my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
And are the slides moving?
Uh, yes, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Now,
Yeah.
so to start with, I have actually divided my session into let's say 3 or 4 different parts, and many of the participants have heard me at different institutions or in different forums, so they may find some of the slides are overlapping with my earlier sessions, but I've tried to do the kind of a justice to this particular theme today, specifically about are intellectual property rights commercializable assets, yes or no? To be honest, to answer this is very difficult, and also being a lawyer, I would simply put it as you just simply cannot have the answer like yes or no. Rather, when we speak about intellectual property rights as commercializable assets, they are commercializable only under certain conditions. What are those conditions? When can you actually commercialize the IP rights? Basically, are they tradable as well? So we'll have a rough idea about the different types of intellectual property rights, especially those are connected to the pharmaceutical industry or pharmaceutical academic institutions, like patent, copyright, industrial design, trademark, and geographical indications as well. How to identify the right kind of IP and how to protect them, we're going to see that what I have divided it into separate what broader themes we have, in pharma industry or pharma academics, specifically the pharmaceutics, pharmacology, pharmacognosy, and pharmacochemistry. Of course, we have other streams like industrial pharmacy, pharma biotechnology, or even pharmaceutical analysis for that sake, but those are actually covered into the broader theme of this IP right. How to identify the right kind of IP that has been generated during your research, basically, be it a master's research or a PhD research access. I remember there was a question to Dr. Nidhi, can I actually get my PhD thesis patented? I'm going to answer that question as well today. Maybe I would have a different perspective than what Dr. Nidhi mentioned, but then I'm going to cover that question as well. The third part of my presentation would be specifically for commercialization. When we think of commercialization, where are we as we as academic institutions? So I have kind of got a SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats with respect to commercialization of the inventions. Basically, I'm going to speak separately about two things. One is the IP rights, and the other one is the research or the product, basically. So these are two separate things. IP rights protect your product or invention or the research or the thesis that you have done. Basically, I'm going to tell you, and I'm not only going to tell you about the weaknesses or the threats, but I'm also going to tell you the bigger opportunities that are there for the academic institutions as far as commercialization. My focus is simple: commercialization of invention. What you are doing in your chemistry lab, how it can be commercialized, how it can be actually commercialized. And I think what we covered in yesterday, one of the sessions by Gavin, the market research part, actually, to be honest, listening to market research as a session is one thing, but doing the market research, sitting at an academic institution with lesser number of resources seems really very difficult. How can actually this be solved as well? I'm going to actually cover those pointers as well. Then we had one wonderful session by Dr. Amita as well, wherein she covered the roadmap of innovation to commercialization. Actually, therein also, what I am going to discuss herein is, where are those opportunities. She mentioned a very nice point about the collaboration part, basically, so for the collaborations, how to go for the collaborations at an academic institution level, and how to actually basically have that kind of networking, so that what you are making in your lab can be commercialized. See, at the end of the day, what we do at an academic institution level in your research lab, to be honest, it doesn't have any value unless and until it is useful for the society. Whatever grants we are getting, whatever funding we are getting is just for the sake of people getting benefited out of the research that you are actually carrying it, and how it can be actually done. I'm going to cover that part as well. And to end with, I'll be discussing some of the best practices with respect to innovation, intellectual property rights, the startup ecosystem. And I'm skipping the incubation part because we have a wonderful session on day 5, which is about ecosystem for incubating the ideas or startups, basically. So I have divided this into these major parts as well. So to start with, when we speak about intellectual property rights as a commercializable asset, there are lots of misconception about intellectual property rights. First thing, intellectual property rights has actually got some value associated with it. I actually want to know your opinions or your take on this, basically, when we think of having intellectual property rights having some value. Can you mention or put your comments? Does IP actually has got some value associated with it? Actually, just put it in the chat box if you feel like yes or no. Simply put yes or no if you feel like there is a value associated with intellectual property. If you feel no, that's absolutely fine. Just let me know so that I can actually move ahead with the session. Let's try to make it a bit interactive as well. You have to simply put yes or no. If IP, intellectual property, whatever your understanding is, it has got some value associated with it. Yes or no. If you feel, to be honest, as I said, yes, there are lots of yes I can see. Okay, IP has got value, Sachin Gholve, Dr. Suresh, I can see here, Dr. Dipanshu, Sunil Kumar ji. Absolutely, IP has got some value associated with, but then ये but जो होता है, that is something which is very much crucial when we think of IP as a commercializable asset basically. Dr. Gopal Sinha, thank you so much for putting yes, actually IP has got a value. Let me put you what is that but or what is that disclaimer. IP basically protects your invention or research. Okay, what you are making in your lab, that is being legally protected by intellectual property rights. But if you the product, if the product that has got some commercial value, then only you have got your IP having some value as such. That means it's not the IP that has a value, but rather is the product that is getting commercial, that is being protected under intellectual property rights, would always have some value. So it's linked basically. So I have whatever you prepare in a lab, the product, if it is commercializable, what is that value of so for example, when we speak of land or gold, like we say per square feet this much is the rate of that area as such, like or we say 10 gram of gold has got this particular value. Similarly, if your product actually has got some value when you are commercializing, then only in that case only your IP has got some value. A few days back, I saw this LinkedIn post, actually one of the professors in a very small town in Maharashtra putting in the LinkedIn that I've got this patent granted basically, and I'm looking forward for commercialization partners as such. Let me tell you, IP doesn't give you any kind of commercializable rights as such, legal rights basically. I'm going to explain this statement as well. It's the product that you want to sell, it should have some value associated with it. Just because something is intellectual property rights or the legal rights you are getting are for the purpose of encouraging innovation, or what we call to assure that you have got something which is novel. If you're doing it for the first time, then you can actually get a intellectual property right over it. But then everything that is new may not have commercial value associated with it. Everything that is new may not have commercial value associated with it. And this statement is very, very crucial, because what you do may be new, it may be IP protected, but it may not have commercial value. What is more important is the product that you have prepared. The product or the idea that is protected under that IP should have got some value associated with it. So IP as a I would say as a legal right has value only if you have got the product that has got some value associated. Second misconception, I got a patent. Everyone wants to be like Funsuk Wangdu basically, I've got a patent, I've got a design granted, I've got a copyright, I've got a trademark, and someone Chatur Ramlingam would come to me, give me millions of dollars, and I'll be rich. No, it doesn't work that way. IP can generate revenue for you only when your IP has got value, and if your product, so everything is linked basically. So if your product has got some value in the market, your IP has a value. The moment your IP has a value, you can generate a revenue out of it. Third thing, it's always about I have got an IP, no one else can copy my research. Now let me tell you how it practically works. So for example, we have different kinds of IPs or different kinds of protection. So for example, let us think of patents as such, as a protection. There are different types of protections among patents. What you can have is a product or a process, or in product as well. You can have a salt patent, you can have a base patent, you can have a composition patent as well. When we speak about IP, like if your product is IP protected. So for example, one of the inventors or one of the researchers has got the product patented now. Can someone else copy it? No, because IP, the legal rights are with that particular inventor. But now, minor changes in your product, or then your IP can be copied as well. As in, for example, let's say there is a product which is formulated as a sustained release dosage form, and you are using a specific polymer in that, and that's what the IP protection has provided you. As in, you have got some IP or the patent which protects sustained release dosage form of glimepiride, let's say, and it contains HPMC as a polymer. Now, anyone else without using HPMC polymer, if they are in a position to prepare the sustained release dosage form of glimepiride, in that case, it's not the same product per se. Q1, Q2, qualitatively and quantitatively, it may be different, but the end goal is same. And this is what is more crucial when we speak about the commercialization of IP. You have got an IP, but what is that one thing that is protected? So what is the kind of extent of protection that you have got? If you have got a broader protection, there are more chances of not getting the product copied, and in that case there are more chances of commercialization for that product or others coming to you for licensing purpose as such. So there are some wonderful examples by the Indian pharma industries. IP can be sold as well. Yes, IP can be sold. It's a tradable assets. In fact, during mergers, acquisitions, or technology transfer, or in many cases, IP has got certain value associated with it. When I'm saying IP, it's just not restricted to patents, but we have different kinds of IPs. We of course are going to discuss about that as well. One of the most important misconception about IP is the ownership. Like, for example, there are 2 or 3 scientists or researchers working in a lab and at an academic institution or university. They have developed a wonderful product and they are trying to file a patent for that. Who is the real owner of that particular IP and for that particular patent, basically? Now there are multiple options that are available by the patent office when you file the patent. Basically, IP ownership lies with actually who files the patent. It has who is actually included in those documents when you are filing the patent. Now, as an academic institution, when we do not have, I think there was a mention of IPR policy as well in one of the sessions, and I'm going to discuss about IPR policy at academic institution level as well today. So for example, if there are 3 scientists who have worked in a lab, who is the real owner? Are they the only scientists or the ones who have actually worked on that particular project? They are the patentee. Are they the only ones who are the inventors? Or is it the HOD who is going to decide who would be the inventors? The similar way, maybe to be in practically, when we try to publish a research paper, or maybe even for the patent filing, we try to accommodate everyone in that research paper or patent. Let me tell you, since IP ownership is a legal matter, someone who has not contributed to the invention may not be an inventor as such. Now, does the institute have any role? Can the institute be the owner? Of course, at the end of the day, you have carried out the research at your academic institution level. You have used the infrastructure of the institute, right? You've got all your things with respect to the lab that are associated with that particular institute. The institute should be the owner as such. But honestly, practically speaking, if any one of your students, forget about the faculties, any one of your students, if he or she files a patent application without informing the guides, let me tell you, practically this has happened with one of my clients. A student, master students, after passing out, filed a patent application. The research guide was not at all aware. Now, Can the institute do something as such? Yes, there may be some legal remedies available, but who wants to actually go to the court for that? What is important at this point of time as an academic institution for you to understand is that IP ownership is a legal matter, and if you have a proper IPR policy in place, what happens practically is as long as the things are smooth, no one is bothered who has filed the patent or for whom the patent has been granted basically. But then but then the moment you see some commercialization potential, some revenue getting generated, everyone wants to claim the ownership. Now, to be honest, as far as the patentee or the inventors are concerned, there are two golden rules to decide who is an inventor and who is the owner actually, or the assignee, or we call as an applicant. As I said, at an academic institution, if you have an IPR policy, then academic institution can be the applicant or assignee for that. In case, just to save the cost, if you don't want to put an academic institution's name as such, in that case, those who have conceived that particular idea, who were involved into conceiving that particular idea as such, they are the ones who has got the right to be included as an inventor. Second, those who have actually worked in the lab for that particular product development, they are the ones who are inventor. Now, there was a very wonderful question asked to me in one of my sessions is, sir, even our interns or some students, BPharm students, or even laboratory attendants are working in the lab for that particular project, right? Do we need to include them as an inventor? No. When I say those who have worked on that particular invention and they know what they're doing, they're part of that, in that case only you can include them as inventors as such. So when we speak about ownership, IP ownership, it is very crucial because these are legal rights, and those who are the legal owners only, they can be the ones who would get benefited if the product gets commercialized. And finally, I just want to mention you, for IP ownership as well. In fact, we are facing one of these issues in one of our recent cases when we filed this patent application. In case of patent application, it doesn't matter whose name is first and whose name is last. This is very common with most of the academic research or research papers basically, or review articles, who is the corresponding author and who is the one actually who has worked, the first name, last name and all. Now, in case of patents, this is immaterial. Each one of you, each of the inventors has got equal rights over that particular invention as such. This is very much crucial as such because, of course, we have got this habit of if you actually try comparing with the research papers, then this is something which is very crucial, which we need to understand. This basic difference between a patent document and basically a research paper as well. Now, I meet a lot of people who tell me that, I have got these many applications or patents, even within the pharma industry, because when I had opportunities to work with the global giants like Ranbaxy, Wockhardt, or Glenmark, that point of time, if someone says, I have got 25 patents, 30 patents actually, that point of time, if we speak specifically about the commercialization aspects, that point of time, numbers don't matter. One patent can protect Pfizer's atorvastatin, which was a $12 billion product basically, which actually turns out around I would say almost 90,000 crore product actually, one patent. But if you have a big pool of patents, still they may not protect your single product as such. IP is not about numbers. It's about the kind of quality or the kind of protection actually that you have got in terms of how you are actually protecting it. And of course, that is very crucial when we actually try to commercialize the invention as such. To start with, like, as I said, so this is very basic fundamental aspects about all types of intellectual property rights. Exactly at sharp 10, we are starting with the next part, that is intellectual property rights has got different types basically. And when we actually try to trifurcate it, we have the patent, trademark, industrial design, which are mostly the industrial property rights, which are very much connected to industries as such. Then we have geographical indications, which are also called as community rights, a wonderful concept, and creators right, copyright, like, not more about the research that we are doing at academic institution, but something is which is very crucial during this time of pandemic. And maybe henceforth this would be something which would be really beneficial for each one of you, like, the creators right, copyright, because of the content that is getting generated day in day out, maybe the content that is getting generated through this particular session as well. Okay, just to let you know that we have different types of intellectual property rights, because we have got different types of creativities basically, like, single product can have different types of intellectual property right protecting it. It may be a patent, it may be a trademark, industrial design, GI, or even trade secret for that sake. We also have different kinds of intellectual property rights, like integrated circuits, then plant varieties basically for the agricultural sector basically, like, what we are going to see in IP rights, like, this is second part, and thereafter we'll actually, because I think what is more important for us to understand is, like, the types of IP rights, wherein then only we would understand, like, what is protected, then only we can commercialize it, right? What is that extent of protection actually that we are getting. To start with, let me start with a wonderful type of intellectual property right, that is industrial design. Many of us have heard this as a design patent basically. I've got some live examples from pharma academic institution as well as pharmaceutical industry. Most of us restrict our research with respect to the, like, the products or typical ceutics, chemistry, cognosy or pharmacology research. But then many times what happens is we have to modify some of these instruments basically. And these instruments, the modifications as such, the external outlook of a product basically, be it a ring, be it a mobile phone, be it a pen, be it an earphone, any modification or the external look of any product may be protected under something called as an industrial design right or design right. We have got this example from pharmacognosy, TLC plates spreader. This was, of course, from one of the institutes in Haryana, and this was protected under industrial design basically. Any instrument basically which you have in your lab, if it has got a different design, external outlook, many a times to suit your needs, you modify. You go to the vendor, tell them, okay, you modify the shape of this particular instrument that to meet your needs. That point of time the IP is created for you right there, and you can actually protect it under something called as industrial design. It's just not academician specific. We have got most of the pharma industries. Now we have this example of Merz Pharma from Frankfurt, Germany, who has got syringe one push rod, which is protected under industrial. Of course, these are live examples, designs granted in India, and like, you can have the look at this at Indian Design Office as well. Another example, this was actually filed and prosecuted by us from institute in Anand, Gujarat, basically. In vitro dissolution test apparatus for chewing gum. Wonderful concept. Now, see, this doesn't protect your utility of the product. It may not protect the utility use of the product, the mechanism of the product, but it can definitely protect the outlook, how it looks. So, when we say how it looks at that point of time, like, what is the function of each of the part is immaterial. Then we have the global giant Gilead, who has got design protection for packaging as such. Another wonderful concept, I would say, with respect to devices is all that is related to injection device. You have got a specific requirement for an injection device. Now Janssen has protected this grip accessory for an injection device. When we so a simple collaboration with a mechanical engineer, or you don't need a mechanical engineer, you're working on a specific instrument, and when you have a vendor for that, if you are telling that vendor to modify it, you can come up with a new product that can for sure be protected under something called as a industrial design. One of the this startup small company based in Thane, spray nozzle for coating of the pharmaceutical products. So any instrument, basically a small part of the instrument as well, can be protected under industrial design. Then we have someone protecting a disinfection device, which is very common during this times of COVID as such, or the pandemic as such. Then Glenmark has protected this actuator for the inhalation, basically, any device wherein you feel like the device. So when to go for design protection? If you feel like that design, external outlook of the product has something to do with utility, in that case, so the actuator product by Glenmark has got this particular external outlook. Internal mechanism we are least bothered about. And after that, what you can do basically is the performance of the product is based on that. So that's the reason they are actually going for. Otherwise, protecting external outlook doesn't help you much if I change the outlook and have the similar functionality as such. But then we have this from pharmacology lab, apparatus for analysis of psychological and psychiatric condition of animals. Wonderful concept. Everyone would agree with this. Another institution in Moga, they are the ones. ISF College of Pharmacy, Moga, we are collaborated with them as a company, and so this is something that they have actually protected under industrial design as well. ACG, the pharma company, ACG PAM, Pharma Technologies, everyone knows tablet punching machine for pharmaceutical use. We know the tablet punching machines basically, and if you are going to make a different, any slight difference in the structure or the outlook of the device, then you can protect it under the industrial design as such. Now we have another example, bottle sealing machine, and again, coming from academic institution, something related to what we do in your lab, in practicals, that is something which is protected under industrial design. We have this example, the product Absorb, everyone knows from Sun Pharma, a bottle with a dispenser of Absorb powder. Basically, it's a kind of I believe an antifungal product, right? This is something which is also protected under industrial design. Janssen has also protected, again, another example of grip accessory for injection device. When you have an injection in your hand, uska grip nahi aata hai, you have an accessory device for that is protected. Nipur, Guwahati came up with this face protection device recently. See, when we speak about invention or innovation, it's not something which is a rocket science, I would call this as. It's not a rocket science. Simple inventions. Maybe what is happening if you look at all these inventions, basically, many of them are, if we look at them, they are very simple. It seems so what's new in a face protecting device? Look at the way the design is, and it is protected. You can get protection for that. Are these commercializable? I'll call them, yes, they are commercializable based on the product value. For example, if the face protection device for sure has got commercial value during this pandemic as such. This was the one which we filed and prosecuted again from institute in Pune, Alana College of Pharmacy. This is an ampule sealing machine. When your students in the lab, they seal the ampules manually, there are in many cases, there is a chance that of a mishap, basically. So this client, actually what they did is they came up with a very simple lab scale ampule sealing machine with a cost of 1,500 to 2,000. Now got a design granted for this. One of the major advantages for design protection is that the cost is very low and it gets granted very early, maybe in few cases 2 months, and your design is basically granted. And in case of patents, many a times it may take a long time as such. Let me just stop sharing my screen now. And I have a question for everyone now here. And the question is, whatever lab you are working in, I have given you some examples basically of the designs. Can you tell me any other examples wherein you have modified an instrument, a device, or anything which can be protected under industrial design? Remember, you have to put it in the chat box. What I need to mention here again is it has to be a product basically, and not a idea, or it's not on paper, but it has to be a product like this design. Anything, put it in the chat box. What is that one thing which you felt like, okay, we modified this, or there was a chance of having actually a, like, industrial design? Put it in the chat box and I'll actually tell you, are there any chances of having industrial design for that, or protection for that, or any other pharma product you feel like, where not only instruments, any other pharma product which you feel like can be protected under industrial design? And I'll tell you a lot of examples basically, like, there was a confectionery product Gavin had mentioned, a Pulse, right? That Pulse product, that also can be protected under industrial design as such. I've given you a hint. Put it in the chat box. What are those products? What are those products which we can, like, protect under industrial design as a type of intellectual property rights as such? Put it in the chat box. I want some answers before we actually move on to the next type of intellectual property rights. Whatever you see in your lab, any instrument, any glassware, in fact, like, that has got some unique characteristic, or unique, I would say, unique, okay, any equipment design? Yes, that's the any equipment design, absolutely yes. It may be anything like a punching machine or anything beyond this which you feel like can be protected under industrial design. Yeah, I'll tell you simple solutions. Like, if you change the shape of a tablet, I remember once we had prepared a tablet which was heart shaped basically, like, and it was coffee bean shaped tablet, and we got protected it under industrial design as such. Now, so we have so many things in our labs which can be protected. Remember, we are yet not commercializing them. We are just trying to understand, can we protect them or not as such? And if we can do, in that case, we can actually go for the commercialization. We'll see how commercialization really works. Now, another type of intellectual property rights that is more important for pharmaceutical industry is trademark. When I tell you these examples, you would understand what value a brand can actually have. Now, this is one product which contains lactic acid. So, I mean, these are normal ingredients basically in a particular proportion as such, which have been used for a wonderful product, which was one of the most innovative products in recent past. Although, when I spoke to some of these specialists in the domain, they were like, there is nothing new as such in the, as far as the product is concerned. And every one of you must be knowing this one particular wonderful example called VWash Plus, expert intimate hygiene. Actually, this product actually was developed by Glenmark Pharmaceuticals, and the global FMCG giant Hindustan Unilever later acquired this particular product. Nothing when I spoke to the scientists basically, but the way the product was branded, the way the branding for that particular product was done, that was really unique, I would say. And that's the reason. So basically, when we try to develop a product, a simple product as well, if we can brand it very in a unique way, or we can So it's what is important is positioning of that particular product. And if we can position that product correctly, then probably we have got the right answers for the branding of that particular product. We have this pain relieving cream with herbal ingredients, pudine ka phool, terpene ka tel, and wintergreen oil. Simple ingredients. For so many years, these have been used for pain relieving product as such. And but then what this particular company did was absolute wonders in the that particular market. Move is another product, basically, like, so a simple product but a great branding, I would say. This is what we typically call as a trademark. Any when we speak about Moo, everyone understands that it's a pain relieving cream, basically, which can be used for any of the joint pains, basically, right? Now, as an academician, when we think of out of box ideas, basically, there is also always a probability that we can think of out of box ideas with respect to branding of the product as well. Now look at this particular product. Long, babul, haldi, bakul, pudina, vajradanti, neem bark extract, majufal, so many things. And I still remember, like, when I saw all these ingredients, I was a bit surprised that, like, what kind of product this is. This is your normal Patanjali Dantakanti natural toothpaste. A simple product, a great branding. It is not so to commercialize a product, you may not just need a great I would say invention, basically, but then simple inventions or a great branding can also, like, give you a lot of encouragement with respect to the commercialization as such. Of course, we also have got this brand called Pharma Literative, what we call a one-stop shop for all related news, courses, events, and many more things, basically. We have some wonderful examples herein as well. Dolo 500, which has been very commonly used, simple paracetamol tablet, 500 mg. What is so great, like, I would say, as far as research is concerned, right? 500 mg paracetamol tablet, that's it. But Dolo sells like anything. It's just not the cost, but the brand, that value that has been generated. And this has been done over a period. Branding is something which is done over a period of time. And I think most of the times we don't recognize this when we develop a product, basically, that point of time. We also need to ensure that we are branding it properly as well, like, and this is very much crucial and this is what trademark actually tells us. We have got this wonderful product, Augmentin, another off-patent product, but the way Augmentin Duo sells, no other product in that amoxiclavu category actually gets sold. These are some of the examples which have been like, typical in the pharma industry, which have been used for protection of the trademark. Next, we have geographical indication, but let me go back again to the chat box just to have okay. Now I'm in chat box and I can see here one question. Let me answer it at this point of time as well. Like, Dr. Subhashish asking, can we protect herbal tablet formulation? I'm covering that part, Dr. Subhashish, but before that, I'm going to the next type of IP, geographical indication as such. And now what I want you to do is make sure that I'm not like, sleepy a bit. Put something in the chat box and let me know what are those products which are famous from the location where you are from. So we have got people all across India in this particular FDP. Ab jahan se bhi ho, any one product which you feel is famous from that particular location, put it in the chat box. Be it a food product, yes. Buransh juice, we got an answer here. Yes. Bamboo, yes. Borolin in Kolkata, wow. Dr. Priya, thank you so much. Any other product which is of natural origin from that particular location? We are speaking about geographical indications. Yes, any other product? We have people all across India, from Mumbai, Pune, Maharashtra. Like, tell me those products which are famous from your locations. Which are those products? A city is known for its products. Like, let me give you an example. Mahabaleshwar is known for strawberry. Now, what are those other locations wherein the products are famous for those particular locations as such? Now, when we speak about geographical indication, a product which has got a okay, we got kasundi, a mustard sauce, and gulgal, a fruit like lemon but size of papaya in Uttarakhand. Thank you so much, Dr. Dipanshu Rana. Yes, we have got Dr. Sonali as well, who is mentioning Nagpur oranges. Yes, there are so many examples actually like this. Now, any product which has got, so we are discussing about the geographical indication. Any product that has got a unique quality because of the local soil or climate, in that case it can be protected under something called as geographical indication. This is very crucial even in pharma industry. How I'm going to tell you with one live example. In all my sessions, I always mention about geographical indication as important IP, but application in pharma is something which is very crucial as far as the pharmacology or pharmacognosy people are concerned, or the herbal products are concerned. Let me go back to again my screen. Okay, yeah. So we have got GI, wherein India looks so beautiful in this map of geographical indication, from Kashmiri Pashmina to Salem fabric. We have so many products which have got uniqueness because of the local soil or climate in those particular locations. Now, one of the most wonderful examples of geographical indication protection by a community is in a country called Peru. It's a Latin American country, and there is this one particular plant, flowering plant, Croton leschleri, which is also called as Sangre de Grado in Spanish, which literally means dragon's blood. Now, dragon's blood because if you see at the picture, it's a latex, red colored, thick latex, okay, that is generated through this particular plant. This has taspine and some kind of chemical contents which have been investigated and approved for HIV associated diarrhea. Now, this is a drug, one of those very few drugs which come from herbal background basically, and crofelemer 2013 US FDA approved for the treatment of non-infectious diarrhea in HIV patients basically, like, now GI can protect your local community. So every drug, every tablet of crofelemer that is prepared, okay, that has got some value, and that value, some part of it goes to the local community in that Peru, the forest, thick forests of Peru country, the local communities over there. So whatever local products, the herbs specifically you have got locally, which has got unique properties which can be used for the treatment at that point of time, it is very much important that it can be protected under GI. Yes, it has got a lot of commercial value as such. Now, this is about geographical indication. Let me go back. Let me go to the next type of IP, copyright. Not much to do with pharma industry as such, because it protects the artistic kind of inventions or creativities. Basically, anything you write as a research paper or review article, newspaper article, everything can be protected under copyright. But during the pandemic, what we have seen is almost every pharmaceutical institution, or almost many of these pharmaceutical professors have come up with their own YouTube channels. This is something which has got very significance with respect to copyright, because you can't copy the content of some other channels. Even the music being background music being taken for a particular from a particular source, basically, that point of time copyright would be in play, and your channel may be blocked if there are more than 3 complaints basically for the copyright. So this is very much essential as far as the type of intellectual property right is concerned, especially during the pandemic. Let me go to the last type of IP that we are going to see, and this is very much important, and everyone would especially those who are into research would very easily understand. In fact, there was a question: can we protect the herbal products as well? If you see under my list of pharmacognosy products, yes, herbal products can be protected. There was a question about drug repurposing in Dr. Nidhi's session. Under pharmacology, drug repurposing or method of treatment, not patentable in India, but then there is a way out to put it. I'm going to discuss that as well. Pharmaceutics, anything, drug delivery system, drug excipient ratio, formulation, packaging, combination, particle size, method of administration, dosing regimen, platform technologies can be protected. Among the last, the chemistry part, drug target expression, method of screening, products, processes, polymorphs, drugs, salts, enantiomers, stability, or any complexes are also basically protected. You can get a patent for any of the your research that you are doing. Now, let me answer that question about which was asked about the can I patent my PhD thesis? The research work that you have carried out in the lab can definitely be protected under certain conditions. And what are those conditions? I'm going to discuss those conditions in the next slide as such. And I'm going to discuss this through a simple story, like, kind of a hypothetical story, but which happens day in, day out with me. Let me just take a sip of water. Okay, thank you. So we have got what happens as a patent agent or patent practitioner with me day in, day out. We have a scientist. I think many of you recognize this guy. Yes, he's Dr. Someone can tell me over mic, who is this guy? Anyone from BCP? Doctor? Am I
Vivek,
audible? Yes, he's Vivek. Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, I just wanted to know if everyone is alert. Okay, Vivek comes to me and he tells me, Vijay, I want to have a patent for my invention. I have done a wonderful research. What are the steps? How do we actually move ahead? And how should I actually, go for filing? Shall I file my own patent? Is it patentable or not? All these steps being very important, and that's how the journey is. I told Vivek that let us have this so-called snakes and ladder, and I'll try to tell you how does that process actually work of having a research in your lab and to get a patent out of it. Still, we are not speaking about commercialization. What we are speaking about is getting IP first and then commercializing it. Now, the first step, most important, academically, या जो हमने books में भी पढ़ा है, what we have learned throughout, whenever we learn about patents, basically, you have got novelty, आपका invention नया होना चाहिए. When any academic client, any academic professor contacts us, some of the words that have been used for their invention, sir, we have got excellent results, we have got outstanding results, no one has done this. And let me tell you, technically speaking, if you have done your literature survey very, I would say, thoroughly, in that case, your invention would always be novel. But then the next step is inventive step. These are the ladders which would help you getting your patent granted, and that prize is actually a patent granted basically. Now secondary criteria, most of the patents, I would say, out of all the rejection, most of the rejections are for inventive step. When we say inventive step, it is predictability of the art. So basically what happens in many cases, you have one drug which has been formulated or tried for one particular activity, and you are just replacing one of that. Now, replacing one of the component is pretty predictable. There is no inventive step in that, and therein, if you have an inventive step, then only your patent can get granted. Otherwise, it is very much difficult to get a patent granted as such. The third ladder for you is industrial use, which doesn't have any issues as such. There is a fourth ladder herein, because Vivek asked me, Vijay sir, I have actually worked on this thesis for long. This is my area of expertise. Been working since last 10 years in this area. Can I draft my own patent? You can. Patent office would accept it as such. But if you really want a patent getting granted and maybe you're looking for some commercial value out of it, what is important for you is Vijay Shivpuje. When I say Vijay Shivpuje, not me as an individual, what you need is a patent expert who is a drafting expert. You are a technical expert, that is absolutely fine. But you are not a legal expert and you may not understand the legal consequences of what you put. Many of the patents that come to us are from that domain jahan pe, wherein they have filed their own, and maybe there is no looking back and getting it. Wonderful inventions killed during the drafting, and that's what actually happens. So if you are looking just for the sake of numbers, filing a patent, getting it published, then maybe you can draft on your own. Otherwise, go for patent agent. As I said, there is no requirement from patent office that the patent can be filed or drafted by a patent agent. You can do on your own, but then there are some snacks as well who are there to ensure that you don't get your patent granted. In one of our recent cases, in fact, this had happened. The client had published a research paper before filing the patent. One of the major obstacles, you file your patent today and tomorrow you can publish, but you publish a research paper and file a patent, then it's not something which is acceptable. Prior arts, the closest prior art, where are you inspired from? That is something, again, a snack. Drafting skills, very much important to look into. And then finally, we have section 3, which rejects all the pharma patents basically. Why? I'm going to take it in the next slide basically. And that is, we have inventions not patentable in India, and we have specific sections which ensure that section 3D, all the chemistry related inventions, salt, ester, polymorphs, derivatives, not patentable, but then they are patentable if you show increase in therapeutic efficacy. So if you are preparing a new polymorph of a known drug, in that case, it is patentable if you can show that the new polymorph has better therapeutic efficacy over the earlier available form as such. Combinations, not patentable in India under section 3E, but mere admixtures are not patentable. If you show the synergy, basically, in that case, it is patentable. Now, the question that was asked, herbal products, are they patentable? So basically, if you try to patent haldi, it is not patentable. But if you come up with a solid dispersion formulation of haldi, turmeric, which is increasing the solubility of haldi, then yes, that is patentable. So what is that protection? That is something which is very much crucial. Method of treatment, second medical use, not patentable. Drug repurposing, not patentable. What we recommend to the client is, in case of drug repurposing, try to change the dosage form as well, and then you can definitely get it patentable, along with either a dependent claim or what we call as a preamble of the invention of that particular claim, wherein we can put that use as well. Now, what happens typically what is that process through which we get a patent application basically, granted? The journey that we go through, I have covered this with some examples as well. Someone asked about the thesis. So we have got this practice at few of the pharmaceutical colleges, wherein the thesis, before being submitted to the university, comes to us. Of course, we have a confidentiality disclosure agreement signed with them. They share the research or the thesis with us, and then we create a patentability report for that, whether that invention is patentable or not. Now, therein, this is the first step basically, and once we realize, okay, this is patentable, we go for filing of a patent application. The moment we file a patent application, we get this application filing receipt. And let me tell you, on the day you file a patent, you have patent application number, date of filing, and the title of that. So for example, on 28th of September 2020, for a UK based company, Canadex, we had filed this patent application, which was relating to delayed release non-aqueous suspension of posaconazole. Now, this is the first part. Second thing that happens is after 18 months, your application gets published. This is another example with one of our clients, wherein the application gets published. Now, let me tell you, it is different from the publication of a research paper, because herein it gets automatically published without any examination. And those people who tell we have got 50 patents, 100 patents, in that case, in most of the cases, they are the patents applications published and not the patent granted. Patent application gets published twice, once as an application, once as a granted patent. Now, the next thing is first examination report. Again, we have got this first examination report. Now the examination, after publication, the examination starts. You request for examination, your examination starts. We get this examination report. FER, now herein at this stage only, you need a help of a patent agent. A first examination report contain all the things related to novelty, inventive step, patentability under section 3, industrial applicability, and everything, the disclosure, sufficiency of disclosure. And herein you need a patent agent, for which you need to reply to, like, for example, for this client of ours, we submitted a reply in terms of amendment in claims, detailed technical report, and the whatever was required. So it's basically a negotiation between, two-way communication between the controller and the applicant, basically. Once we get the first examination report, thereafter we have hearing notice. First, so at sometimes FER reply, after FER reply, we can get the patent granted. Few times we get the hearing notice, and you have to actually appear for these hearing at the patent office. Basically, whatever communication you had that was through email or submission of the documents, this is the only opportunity wherein you can speak with the controller, convince the controller why is your invention novel, why is your invention, what is that inventive step, and let me tell you, this is one opportunity for you as an applicant as well. You can appear for the hearing. These are virtual hearings from your location. You can attend these hearing along with your patent agent as well. Patent office allows applicants and the agents to appear for these hearing, and the end result is a golden document like this with the emblem of Government of India. This is one of those patents which we got recently granted for one of our clients, and this is the one certificate that you get as a grant of a patent, or what we call as a patent grant certificate. This journey is something which takes at times 6 to 7 years, but there is an expedited examination process now available. And let me tell you, those of you who are under startups or who register as a startup or file a PCT, for them it is available, as well as if you are filing not as an institution but also as an individual, and there is at least one female inventor, you are allowed to go for expedited examination. In that case, in case of expedited examination, your patent may get granted, let me tell you, within 9 or maybe 9 months or even a year as well, so expedited examination option is actually available for female individual inventors as well. The next part, I think the most crucial, which has not been yet announced, but it's in the draft stage, and it would be very much crucial for specifically for Bombay College of Pharmacy. Government has come up with a draft guidance. It's in draft, not yet implemented, wherein government institutes or government aided institutions, if they are filing as an institution, the cost would be very less compared to the private institutions as such. Okay, this is one difference the government has come up with, and therein you would also be eligible for expedited examination as such. So once this guidance is in public domain, for sure we'll let you know, and then we can actually then you can go for expedited examination with the lesser cost as well. But as I said, it's still in the draft stage, and then once it is finalized, then only it would be implemented as such. So this ends our second part sharp at 10:40. This is what I had predicted, and we'll have 2 minutes break. But I'll leave you with one simple question of, everyone wants to be Funsuk Wangdu, but you have to put it in the chat box. How many patents did Ranchor Das Shamal Das Chanchad have? How many? The movie Three Idiots, the character Ranchor Das Shamal Das Chanchad have. How many patents did he have? I'm leaving you with this question for around a 1 or 2 minutes break. Just give it a thought. Give it a thought. I'm coming back in a minute after having a cup of coffee, actually, and then we'll take the this discussion ahead. The most important part of this discussion about the commercialization and the best practices, I'll actually take around 30 to 40 minutes. Yeah, just put it in the chat box. How many patents did Ranchor Das Shamal Das Chanchad have? Okay, great. We got at least 4 answers here. Dr. Sonali Askarkar, Satish Patil, Dr. Seema, and Dr. Dipanshu Rana. Thank you so much for putting it as 400 or 400 plus. But there was a catch in this, and the name was wrong. The question was wrong because it was not the Ranchor Das Shamal Das Chanchad who had 400 plus patents, but it was Funsuk Wangdu who had 400 plus patents. And so the correct answer for this is 0 actually. Funsuk Wangdu had 400 plus patents. Ranchor Das Shamal Das Chanchad, the character which was actually shown there was different. So he had just 0 patents. Okay, let me just let me just go to my presentation now once again. Of course, we have got a lot of questions, but we'll take it at the end. What is okay? Let me is my screen visible? Can someone please unmute and tell me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Now, when we speak about IP commercialization, I remember this slide by Prasad sir about the strategic alignment between customer and market needs to new technology, basically. Now, where does IP stand in this entire value chain? Basically, I would call it as that is IP as such doesn't have, as I said, IPR cannot be commercialized per se until and unless, I've been repeating this statement again and again, IPR cannot be commercialized until and unless you have got the product which has got a commercial value. So I would say a new technology and idea, that point of time that idea protection is way more important. And if that idea has got some value, then only your IP rights has got some value. Now, if we look at the academic institutions specifically, and if I look at the commercialization angle of the research that is happening, there are great ideas generated. There is a huge talent pool, but then the major obstacle for commercialization has been the focus on Me Too research. One person started working on a nanotechnology, or let's say liposome, or let's say transdermal drug delivery system. Everyone is trying to follow that. Like, what is commercializable? Let me tell you, most of the pharma companies ask for oral drug delivery systems. As organizations, see, I had this opportunity to work with some of the best of the companies, be it Ranbaxy, which was the leader in the Indian pharma industry, Wockhardt, a company at that point of time which was a leader in the biotech kind of research, or a company like Glenmark, which is considered as a pioneer in the so-called drug discovery in India as such. Everywhere, everyone wants more number of products which are coming from oral drug delivery system. And our focus for research has been always complex dosage forms. See, let me tell you, practically, when you scale up the products in the lab, when you prepare the product in lab and scale up in the production plant, first of all, we don't have the capability of having those products being manufactured in the industry as such, the complex products. As someone working on iontophoresis, for that sake, that's not something which is going to get commercialized at all. One major important thing is here in what industry we have today in India, pharma industry, they are very much capable of taking your oral products to the market, topical products to the market, to some extent inhalable products to the market, and simple injectable products to the market. Most of the companies can do this. If you go anything beyond this, probably your end users or the ones who are going to commercialize it are not here in India. And let me tell you, one of the major lessons that you need to understand as for any kind of business setup is that you need to ensure that you are preparing the product for the market and not for someone who you don't know, basically. The way it doesn't work, the way you get a patent and then start commercializing it. No, it doesn't work that way. Identify the market first, and that's the thing. That's the reason we had that market research session kept at the early part of our FDP rather than having at the late part. Market research is very much important. When we think of the research that is happening out, we have far more focus on the impact factor of the journal. And so what happens basically, the bigger journals or the journals with a higher impact factor probably have got more research publications from the domain of complex dosage forms. This is not something which is commercializable. Maybe you have got a great market value for your product, but you may not get good impact factor research journal. But for commercialization, that is absolutely fine. Now, where are the opportunities? I think what Dr. Amita had specifically mentioned, and we had a specific session by Dr. Nidhi as well, interdisciplinary research in allied sector as well. And one of the major threats has been higher cost for research and drug discovery, especially in the pharma domain. But then you can think of other options as well. When I say interdisciplinary research, one of the most important thing about pharma academic education, which has been always neglected, is we think of newer things, but what we don't think of is the different abilities we have. There is no other science in the world. This is one slide which I always like to mention. There is no other science in the world which has got so many avenues. You ask me as a patent agent what advantage I have as a pharmacist. I understand biochemistry, I understand microbiology, I understand zoology, I understand analysis, biotech. I may not be an expert, absolutely fine. We also had the subject of pharmaceutical engineering, right? Which probably I'd never liked, but today I understand because I can understand a bit of mechanical engineering inventions as such. Now, when we speak of pharmacy as a profession and interdisciplinary research, we have so many avenues. Let me tell you, the future is with interdisciplinary research. Think of any of these areas, basically, and you have got greater avenues for not only for the research funding, but also for the, I would say, the commercialization aspects as well. Best time was this when we had actually this COVID pandemic, which was really good for the research, and how I am going to tell you with some live examples as well. Now, if I think of IP commercialization, so I had this earlier slide for patenting. Now I have the slide for where should you work in if you really want to commercialize your invention. Let me start with the chemistry part, because this is one of those things which has been always neglected into the pharma academic research. The industry needs stable products, simple molecules. I'll tell you one example of a molecule called rifaximin. Let me tell you, none of the Indian pharma industry, or there is globally just one or two companies who have been successful in the polymorphic stability of rifaximin. Let me tell you, this is a $1 billion product. If you're working on this kind of molecule, probably you have got greater chances. See, you can be a Funsuk Wangdu for sure, but what you have got with you, so that someone else comes to you and takes your license for the invention, that is more important, right? And if you're working on products like this, maybe, or some long chain aliphatic compounds, we know the chemists very surely know are the ones which are difficult to prepare or crack in the lab. That point of time, I think we have more chances of commercialization of your invention. IP is one thing, and commercialization. So it's I would say a triangle: intellectual, your creativity; property, the commercialization; business; and rights, legal rights. So when you have this triangle complete, then probably you have got a great case study. And of course, we are going to have a great case study on 25th with one of the pharma inventors who protected the patent protection of her product, as well as she has been trying to commercialize it as well. Now, we have examples like peptides, the octreotide and that FTP kind of compounds, which are thoda sa complex in terms of the chemistry, but then may require some kind of infrastructure as well. If you're working on these kind of molecules, or another thing I'll tell you, most of these companies, we are so-called dependent on the China for the API intermediates. What most of these companies do is they -1 or -2 intermediate they bring from China, and then probably they're just doing 1 or 2 steps and getting the API commercialized, basically, or the DMF filed. Herein you have a lot of chance with normal commercializable APIs as well, which may be old APIs as well. But then let me come back to pharmacognosy. Herbal products combinations for sure patentable as well as commercializable. What is important is, where is the market? Where is that market actually? I remember the other day I was speaking to Ujwala ma'am, and that point of time there was a mention about COVID-19, basically, with respect to market research. And the question was, do we need a market research for COVID-19? No, the abundant market is available for your products, nutraceutical products. Let me tell you, I have got few clients, nutraceutical clients or herbal clients, who got great products for COVID-19 immunity booster treatment, and they are commercializable, simple products. But then I would say, yes, here are the opportunities coming. In pharmacology, again, the herbal drugs. Let me put in pharmacology and pharmacognosy, when you are trying to work on herbal products, try to make it in modern dosage forms as well, if possible, as such. If you are simply calling it as an extract, no one is going to accept it. If you call it as a solution or suspension or emulsion, probably you have better chances. If you're calling it a powder, then instead of that, if you're calling it a granule, preparing a granule or tablet, then probably it is going to work really well for pharmacology and pharmacognosy. Drug repurposing absolutely works, does wonders with, we have examples like a drug called bromocriptine, we have rifaximin. There are so many drugs, aspirin, but only thing is the if you change the dosage form, then only, like, maybe you have the IP right protection, but then commercialization point of view, they are wonderful drugs wherein you can definitely work on, and most of the research that we get is in this domain only. Ceutics, like that's my specialization basically, like, wherein you have oral. Just don't, if you just want to go beyond oral, just go for topical, ophthalmic or parenteral, and but nothing beyond that basically. Like, if you are going for inhaler products, inhaler devices is absolutely fine, because inhaler product MDI DPI development is not that difficult. uh, like one of the if you're working on a platform technology, basically what I would like to mention is try to use new drugs instead of going for an old drug as a model drug, because you never know that technology may do wonders with the new drugs. With the old drugs, if that technology do wonders, still you may not get a protection, or it may not be commercially viable as such. Getting new drugs may be difficult at times, but then to be honest, we have been involved in this as Pharma Literati or as Patlex Business Solutions. We have been helping lots of academic institutions to purchase, or rather get some free samples of the drugs as well, with the institutions with which we are working. Think of cosmetics and nutraceuticals as a wonderful area, and I think this is really working well. Another wonderful example, like, in this case, we have a discussion with Ruchi Singh again. Like, I think I have mentioned her thrice now, and we should look forward to for that particular session as such. Nutraceutical and like, cosmetics as such provide you better opportunities. And see, one of the advantages of pharmacists working in cosmetics and nutraceuticals is that cosmetics and nutraceuticals as such as a science is exactly similar to pharmaceutics or the formulation sciences. And no other stream basically teach you all these sciences, as I have already mentioned. I think this was something which was already discussed in Dr. Amita or Prasad's Menon's session, the problem solution approach. Instead of just writing your thesis or doing a project, try to identify a problem first. I've tried to tell you so many problems here. Aliphatic long chain compounds, very difficult to prepare in lab, or maybe, like, nutraceutical product. BCS class 4 drugs, wonderful opportunity. No one is willing to work on the BCS class 4 drugs basically, like, but there is so much of every other big pharma generic company is working on that, not able to crack. Let me tell you the difference between the academic approach and an industry approach. Industry want market, industry want business. Academicians are researchers, they can go to the in. So the when a scientist working in a R&D, he has to work on a BCS class 4 drug, he can't go to the like, I would say, in depth and come up with a conclusion. But then as an academic institution or academic researcher, we may also have got this opportunity to do this. Collaborations, I think we have discussed it again and again. And finally, market orientation or market research is something that is wonderful, required basically. So all these things would help you ensure that your invention gets commercialized. The moment it is in public domain, if your research you feel like, it's something which is commercial. And to be honest, as Patlex Business Solutions or our pharma brand, basically Pharma Literati, which works with institutions, we are getting involved at the very basic stage, wherein we are helping the students identify the right kind of project. Because see, basic level पे जब तक हम लोग नहीं काम करेंगे, you need to have this understanding at the upfront what projects to work for, wherein commercialization can be done. Therein we are actually trying to help out. And so when we started 3 or 4 years back, that point of time we were just providing the services with respect to patents, but now we are, as I said, involved into end-to-end solutions from ideation to commercialization, and how I'll discuss it in next few slides as well. Now, what happens if you don't have the product which is commercializable. Like, this is something, I would say, you don't get a partner, then also you are not in a position to identify a partner. In that case also, you have got some opportunities. I'm listing those opportunities. You can note it down right here. But let me tell you, unfortunately, there are very few opportunities available, especially in the pharma domain. But if when these opportunities are available, many of these people are the institutions or the researchers are not actually using these opportunities as well. The one program which is an annual program is a Pfizer IIT Delhi Innovation and IP program, which not only from Sutix, but any device, any kind of healthcare related invention is funded, funding up to 50 lakhs per incubatee. And of course, in this particular picture, you can see Ruchi Singh as well, platform technology for transdermal delivery of micronutrients, nutraceutical domain where she's working in. She got this funding in 2018, basically 2017 or 18, right? Now, this is one program which is helping. So once you have your product ready, IP you have taken care of, and commercialization partner, well, you have tried to identify, you couldn't get, no one approached you, still you can actually be part of any of these. Another program that is run by CIPLA, I don't know whether it is active or not, but this is a CIPLA initiative called as Innoventia. And I remember Pharmaliterty was promoting this when this particular program was launched. Again, same thing, you have an idea, innovate and get incubated, and CIPLA would take your product ahead. Now, these are initiatives under CSR or corporate social responsibility or their research requirements as well. And I think these provide you a lot of opportunities. And let me tell you what, it's not about what kind of institution you're working with or what kind of research background you have got, but it's more about idea, a great idea, and you can be very easily incubated, a great idea, and you can be very easily getting funding as well. That is more important. Another program by APTI, Association of Pharmaceutical Teachers in India, and NSRT, Navin Saxena Research and Technology. Pharmaliterty was involved into this, but let me tell you, we tried to reach many of these institutions, but then NSRT was ready to commercialize these inventions, but then got very less responses, to be honest. Maybe as an organization, it was not big, but let me tell you what, when we think of commercialization as a product for domestic market, the mid-level companies may help you better because they want to grow compared to the bigger organization, the MNCs and all. When you commercialize these products, you can actually get benefited out of them as well. Lastly, as I said, Pharmaliterty or as an organization, Patlex, we have been involved into ideation to patent filing and everything. And this year we came up with this particular program as well, especially because there are a lot of questions on herbal research, and the COVID-19 situation has actually given us an idea about more focus about herbal and as such. Now, this is very, very crucial as such, and you can still participate in this particular program. There are 3 corporate partners who are willing to take your herbal research to the market. We have already connected few of these entries to the corporate clients, and we are looking forward if anyone is actually interested in that. Now, all this is all about when we started about IP protection, where are we lagging? How can IP be protected? What different types of IP? How actually we can get benefited because of the various schemes as well. Let me conclude my session with best practices at academic institutions that have been followed. Over last 4 years, I have got this opportunity to travel very extensively, almost 20 states in India, wherein I worked with lots of engineering institutions, pharmacy institutions, law schools, management schools, incubation centers, and all. I have collated some of the best practices at academic institutions, with respect to innovation or ideation. We have this concept called creative thinking workshops, In fact, in 2017, we conducting these creative thinking workshops. Basically, how can you think creatively? What are those techniques as well? Something which may be really helpful. Another one concept which I include in each of my sessions, which works really well for innovation or ideation, is this called Innovation Dropbox, which is available at Chitkara University in Chandigarh. I had taken this picture from my mobile phone when I visited the university. So the concept is very clear. You just need to put your idea in that Dropbox, and there is a committee, internal committee of Chitkara, which takes care of the IP for that and any commercial potential or commercialization potential for that idea. Because positioning of the product is more important. As a researcher, you may not be in a position to understand what kind of value your research has got, as well as how it can be protected, as well as can we have something coming out of this as well. This is very important at a very fundamental level, innovation or ideation level, because this is where we need to make more work as an academic institution. IPR is a secondary thing. Until and unless you have got great ideas, IP protection is not going to help you. But since it's my business, of course, I have included IPR practices at academic institutions, having an IP policy. I'm going to discuss about it. We work with few institutions wherein every master's or PhD thesis goes through IP cell. Then, it comes to us, we evaluate it, and then we recommend certain kind of IP protection, yes or no for that. Financial rewards for patents, not possible for every institution, specifically the government or aided institution. Establishment of IP cell. Now, this is something which is very crucial because it may not, if you are looking for a long term, this may really help you have the culture of entrepreneurship or startup at your organization as well. There is one university which has made it, there was a question on patent search basically, and I think it was from someone from Bombay College of Pharmacy itself, how to do the patent search when you have, I think it was for Nidhi, Dr. Nidhi, and how to do the patent search when we have so many results actually, so for thesis, patent search is mandatory. That is policy of one of the academic. See, some of these are really short term or really long term kind of practices which are definitely going to help these institutions. Startup. In case of startups, we have got market research workshop. Of course, what Gavin did was just I would say tip of the iceberg. We can have extensive workshops, especially at the early stage of your research, basically, and maybe in terms of for those workshops wherein we have for the PhD researchers, basically when they join in your institutes. Legal and ethical steps to start a business. I think now most of the IICs are conducting this. Then, there are lots of lots of academic institutions who has got their funding opportunities for startups, as well as providing the legal support from people like us, the IP support or legal support, or support from CA, chartered accountant as well. And this is what incubation is all about, basically. One best practice I would say that I really liked at IIS University Jaipur is a concept called Campus Connect. We have got these lots of hackathons, and we have got lots of competitions every year for idea generation. Campus Connect is a wonderful concept. Let me tell you, IIS University is a women university, basically only for females. IIS University has done, what they do is they provide the winners of the competition a market within their campus. Now, what does it mean? The winners, of course, it's not a pharmacy college. The winners of the annual hackathon or ideation competition are allowed to sell their products at their campus throughout the year for 1 year. Works really well, let me tell you. The students are going through each and every step of research to the commercialization at the academic institution. Let them fail at academic institution. If they fail at academic institution, even I failed in one of my ventures, early ventures, Flexitutor, but if we fail at academic institution level, at least we would have better learnings when we go out, basically, and that is more important as an academic institution, to provide those learnings to the students, not only from pharmacy or research point of view, but also from the entrepreneurship or startup point of view. Lastly, I'm going to discuss about IP policy, and we have some very common questions. One of the research students files a patent for an invention without informing the institute, without informing the research guide. Cases happened with us. Ex-employee leaves the organization, takes the research know-how and publishes research paper with his new institute or organization. What can you do? A professor files patent application, the institute provides funding, invention gets commercialized. Who is going to take the money? Is it the institute or the professor? A pharmacy professor beyond office hours provides consultancy, develops some IP which is in pharma domain, files a patent and gets commercialized. Does the institute have any legal right over the invention? Remember, pharmacy professor beyond office hours, working as a consultant, developing IP, commercializing, institute still has a legal right over it. How? If you want to know, just call me. We can discuss this over a call. Because of lack of time, I can't answer all these questions. But beyond that, a pharmacy professor beyond office hours, same thing. Everything is same except that he developed the technology in telecom domain. Does the institute have any legal right over the invention? My answer is still yes. How? If you don't have IP policy in place, then probably you don't have the answers right now. IP policy document answers all the probable questions and lays the guidelines for the institutes, students, faculties with respect to the working and ownership of the any kind of intellectual property rights, not only patents, it designs, trademarks, copyrights, even geographical indications and trade secret. Practically speaking, when I started telling people about having the IPR policy, for your academic institution, research based institution, basically no one was basically interested in that. But when I told them it's going to help you in terms of your NAC NBA accreditation or NIRF rankings, or for your ISE activities or EDCL activities, everyone is interested. Have an IPR policy. Whatever is the reason for you to have IPR policy in place, have an IPR policy in place. You never know what kind of students you have got, what kind of research would come out, and what kind of commercialization would happen from your institution as such. I'm done with my presentation, but with the kind permission of the host, I would just like to take 1 or 2 slides which tell about my ventures, basically Patlex Business Solutions, which is involved into market research and competitive intelligence, basically with pharma organizations. We work with MNC pharma as well as startups, MSMEs. We work with the biggest of the pharmaceutical organization in India, which every one of the U student or some of the students or the researchers aim to work with. We work with that company, as well as we are involved into IP training, filing, prosecution. We also have startup and entrepreneurship related courses. We provide some support for NAC and NBA only with respect to entrepreneurship, startup and intellectual property rights. We have a brand, if you can see right here, the logo Pharma Literati. Under which we are connected with 30 plus colleges and universities with MOUs and lots of trainings, courses, and and of course we are privileged to get connected with Bombay College of Pharmacy as well. So I'm done with my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. I had predicted it around 11:15 and I think we are almost bang on time. I would be more than happy to take any questions if we have. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Shivpujay sir. It was such an intriguing session. I'm sure all the participants must have, thrilled, especially listening to those tips that you have given and so many, best practices that you have talked about. One of the best part of the session, I think you started with those misunderstandings about the IPR, and then you talked about several things about the types of IPR and the commercialization aspects and so on. There are several questions in the chat box, so with your permission, should I announce the questions?
Yes, ma'am, please. Yeah.
I think you had talked about a part of this for this question. Can we protect the herbal tablet formulation? Do you want to add on something to this?
Yeah, I think the one part that I skipped in this is when we are protecting any product of natural origin, we also need to take permission from National Biodiversity Authority, NBA as well. I think this is something which is very crucial. What it means is you need to share the revenue of your product with Government of India for biodiversity purpose, and that is one thing. But yes, herbal products are patentable, especially the dosage forms. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Let's go to the next question by Dr. Dipanshu Rana. Can we protect a particular microorganism which we have isolated first time from a particular source?
Yeah, Dr. Dipanshu, we can protect it provided it is isolated and separated. Basically, again, we have a different kind of barriers as well, wherein we need a specific permission from one of the government agencies as well when we work on these kind of microorganisms. Basically, I'm just forgetting the name of that agency for which we need to approach. We need to get some specific number from them, and then only we get. Yes, but this is definitely you may not be in a position to get patent for that entire microorganism, but then it has to be some end product coming out of that microorganism. So using that particular microorganism, that would be something which I would recommend. Yeah.
All right. I hope that has answered the question. Going to the next question by Dr. Gopal Sinha. Is there any specific exam of GOI, that is Government of India, that is being conducted to certify competency in IPR? And can I do it in a distance mode also?
Okay, this is more about career. Dr. Gopal, thank you so much for the question. If you are from technical background, so lawyers are not allowed, but if you are from science fraternity, any of the sciences, then you can appear for something called as a patent agent examination. And I think when there was introduction given for me, it was mentioned I'm a registered patent agent with the Indian Patent Office. Indian Patent Office, Government of India conducts this particular examination, patent agent examination. Do check the details on the website of Indian Patent Office as such, and if you want any details, you can get in touch with me as well. Thank you.
All right. Going to the next question by Dr. Seema. Normal time to file a patent and actually receive a patent, and can it be possible through online mode?
Absolutely, Dr. Seema. We are during the lockdown or during the pandemic, we as patent agents are surviving because it is possible through online. And to file a patent, as I said, if you give me the invention, maybe I would need 2 to 3 weeks to file a patent, and getting it granted all depends. If you are going for expedited, maybe in a year or two, you can get it granted. And if you're going for normal examination, maybe you may need 4 to 5 years as such to get the patent granted. Yeah.
All right. The next question by Dr. Subhashish. May I know the total expenditure for the whole process?
Oh, wow. I think more business getting generated for me here. Okay. Dr. Subhashish, there are two types of costs here. I would say one is the official cost for patent office that is fixed. And then if you go to any agent like me, then in that case, the costing may vary depending on the agent to agent as such. But on a very broader perspective, I would say the filing cost should not be more than 20 to 30,000, and the entire cost from filing to grant should not be more than, let's say, 70 to 80,000 at the max. That's the average cost for academic. When we are working with academic institutions, we have signed these MOUs. Therein we have got, and see, to be honest, for academic institution, the requirements for patent filing and getting it granted are different from a corporate. So we are working on a different business model specifically for this academic institution. I think that's what I can mention as of now, doctor. But then maybe what you can do is maybe you can give me a call or mail me so that I can actually give you a quotation as far as the entire expenses are concerned. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. All right. Going to the next question by Dr. Amol. How patent office measure or consider efficacy under 3D section? Is it enhancement in pharmacodynamics or kinetics with enhanced solubility? Dissolution will be considered.
Okay, I think that's a very interesting question, Dr. Amol. Before I answer this question, I just wanted to know, Dr. Deepti, is the session still getting recorded?
Yes.
Okay, because Dr. Amol, few pointers I can share you off the record, but on the record, I would like to tell you here is the measurement of efficacy under Section 3D is a very complex phenomena, and enhancement in few cases the solubility or enhancement in so basically the word that has been used is efficacy, enhancement and efficacy. If you can show that any of the parameters, be it pharmacodynamics, kinetics, and enhanced solubility, is directly connected to the enhanced efficacy, in that case, probably you can overcome Section 3D. This is on the record, I can say. Off the record, I think there are a lot of things which can be discussed, but I think this is not the right forum to discuss this. Thank you.
All right. The next question, I think by Dr. Harita. Could you please throw light on the information validation aspects of working examples put in patent applications?
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Harita, for this question, because I think this one part, actually, I wanted to go through the some tips for filing, actually drafting the patent as well, but then because of lack of time, I couldn't cover that. Yeah. So basically, it is not mandatory to have working examples in a patent application. But it is always preferred, and we have two types of examples. One is the one which you said validated, or which you have carried out in the lab. You can also have some examples which we call as prophetic examples, which we have not practiced in the lab, but then maybe you feel this can work actually, so it is possible to include both the types and there is no specific answer. It all depends on what you are protecting in the claim, what kind of invention you have got, and how you want to protect, what kind of protection you want, kitna broad ya kitna narrow protection you are looking for. Based on that, your working examples. So working examples for platform technology would require a lot of working examples basically. But if you are, let's say, preparing a cream dosage form of a particular drug, then probably one working example works really well. Yeah.
All right. The next question by Shagufta Khan. Having been acquired the patent, what is the next step to initiate the commercialization?
Dr. Deepti, sorry, but can you please repeat the question?
Sure, I'll repeat the question by Shagufta Khan. Having been acquired the patent, what is the next step to initiate the commercialization?
I think my entire session was on this only.
Right.
It's not about getting a patent. Getting a patent, see, IP and product commercialization are two things. IP just helping you, get some value out for when you commercialize the product. But then I think what is more important is the product having any commercial value as such. I think Dr. Shagufta, maybe we can discuss this off the record as well, if possible. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Going to the next question by Dr. Gajanan. Is it possible to get a patent for derivative as a novel use?
If the derivative is novel, and if you can actually come up with, if you can overcome Section 3D, then probably we can have a patent. New uses are not patentable in India, but yes, for sure for US and Europe you can. But if we restrict our discussion only to India, then new derivatives are patentable if they show enhancement in efficacy as such. Yeah.
All right, I think we are done with all the questions which were there posted in the chat box, and there are several messages mentioning it's a very informative and an excellent session. So thank you very much, Doctor, for being here today and delivering this session on such an important topic. And it's a buzzword. I think we keep listening to this the IPR being very important in this time. Thank you very much. Over to the organizers now.
Thank you, Dr. Dipti Gatne ma'am, for chairing this informative session. I now call upon Professor Ujjwala Shinde ma'am, the coordinator of our FDP, to felicitate Mr. Vijay Shivpure sir for this informative session. Ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Harita, and thanks, Vijay. We have been actually, you have been with us right from the inception of this FDP, and you had really a great help in organizing all the sessions for us. As rightly said, that multinational companies, they are aware of resources and investment required when the commercializing, when you are going to commercialize the idea. However, when it comes to startups and in emerging businesses, they may not be as familiar with this process. And with your session, we have got some idea about how to commercialize this product and what is the difference between the patent and the commercialization. With right examples you have really cited in your session, and you have made this session very engaging. Thank you very much for taking out the time for us. And as a token of appreciation from Bombay College of Pharmacy, our research scholars, they have planted a sapling of Ratrani in our BCP Green campus. So, Harshali, could you play the video? Yeah. As a Mr. Vijay, with our FDP, please accept our this one e-certificate of appreciation. And when you come to college, definitely we'll have visit to our BCP garden, and we'll see the how the sapling is growing. And thank you once again for your session and for taking out your precious time for us.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah, over to Harita. You'll be taking a photograph.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I request all the participants now to switch on their videos for a group photo. I'll just activate the video mode. I request all the participants to please join for the group photo. Thank you all the participants. We now go for a quick break, and we will again join sharply at 11:45 for the next session of today's day on intellectual property rights. Thank you all the participants for your patient hearing.